Welcome to the Endurance Drive podcast.
Our mission is to share the key principles that structure our approach to endurance training and coaching.
I'm Jim.
And I'm Katie.
And today we have a very special guest here in the Pain Cave studios. Who is it, Katie?
It is Coach Kevin, KPI Training, Kevin Prunty. Welcome to the podcast.
Good afternoon, everyone. Happy to be here in the Pain Cave.
So before we get into Kevin's interview, we're super excited to have him here. We're going to go through our regular coaching and training insights because we've picked up a couple things in the last couple weeks. So I think I'm going to go first.
Okay.
And this is a hot take for the Pain Cave because skiing is a hot topic that we've been talking about a little bit in previous podcasts. And a secret is that the last podcast that we recorded and released on Thursday, we did before I went on a big ski trip. And I said some things about skiing that I may or may not want to walk back now that I have skied for 4 days straight.
Is this a trigger warning?
Yes. This is a trigger warning for skiing. If you're a hater for downhill skiing, then this is a major trigger warning. But for the people that really like skiing, they might like this. So anyway, I went skiing for 4 days. It was really fun. I was with family. I took a big break from kind of structured endurance training. I've just kind of been really busy and at a little bit of a plateau. So it was nice to switch things up. And skiing is a really hard workout. That's my coaching insight. So I was skiing from like 9 to 4 every single day, 4 days in a row. And I think 3 of those days we had about a foot of fresh powder and I was wrecked by the end. Like I was at altitude, it was travel, I had a 6 a.m. flight to get out there. So probably all of that contributed, but I felt really worked. And I don't know, I came back and my legs felt really strong. So just want to say skiing is probably worth a little bit more TSS in Training Peaks than we've given it, depending on the type of skiing that you're doing. But I think I built some leg strength. So
I agree.
How did you account for the TSS in?
Well, if you look at my Training Peaks right now, it's a mess because I haven't been in there a couple of days. But I think the way that I would probably think about it is, again, this is going to depend a lot on how hard you're skiing and what the terrain is. But I think at least maybe like 35 to 40 TSS per hour of skiing is reasonable. But I usually will take out the time that like there's the lunch and there's the lifts. This is not 7 hours of skiing. So if you can figure out like on average how long a run's going to take you and then only just count that moving time, then maybe assign like 35 to 40 TSS per hour, which is on the order of what we might use for a strength workout. I think that might be about right.
Yeah, I think if you're in the glades, like if you're in the woods and stuff, I mean, your legs will be burning. You're halfway through, you're navigating different things. Like the glades, your legs are burning for sure.
Yeah.
And one way I like to think about TSS for sort of these non-traditional sports is to think about at the end of the day, what does this feel like if it was a run? So, for example, at the end of the day, did you feel like that was like a 7-mile run, 8-mile run, 9-mile run? What did you feel like?
I think an hour of moving time on skiing probably is like a 7-mile run, or 6 or 7 miles, maybe more like a trail run. It is a little bit different. And again, like I will stand by what I said last time on if you're training for an Ironman, you can't get there only by downhill skiing. Like obviously you need a lot of other stuff. But I think I had previously thought like, oh, this is a vacation. I'm going to come back like totally recharge. And I came back pretty tired and pretty sore from skiing.
That's like when you get done at skiing and it's 4 p.m., you get home, you take that 30-minute nap because you're wiped from the day. Like that post-ski nap is all time.
Totally. And I'll add too, just like the effect of being at altitude and being outside in the cold all day, all those things do take a lot out of you. So big durability activity. And for that reason, like you need to fuel really well. You need to hydrate more. Your sleep might be a little bit compromised at altitude. So you want to build in that extra recovery time. But you might also get a nice aerobic boost when you return from being at those higher elevations.
Yeah, so. Hydration is interesting because it's cold. You don't like if you don't have a backpack, you don't have a bottle with you. You got to spend $8 for a small water bottle at the base. Like sometimes it's interesting. Like I'll leave the mountain. I'm like, oh my God, I got to drink like 40 ounces on the way home. I'm dehydrated right now.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So anyway, our advice is if you go skiing, it's not the worst thing in the world, and you can have some TSS.
You just need some snow.
Exactly. All right, Jim, training insights.
Shout out to our skiers. Okay, all right. So I didn't go skiing this week, but I did go see my bike fitter. And so I was just having a knee issue. And so I touched base with Ian at FitWorks in Waitsfield, Vermont, and shout out to him. But just a couple of things that came out of that was, one, we've emphasized this in other podcasts, is that it's just super important to have a well-fitting bike for your health and comfort and speed. This is your main vehicle for your sport and even for runners who are cross-training. So it must support you and your goals, and you need good tools in your toolbox. So we just did a small tweak to my cleats. We didn't do a really big bike fitting because I really like the way my bike fits now. But he just identified some things that what I was doing. I was rotating my hips inward and bringing power to the pedals. And so we just straightened out the cleats a little bit. So what I appreciate is that Ian's a real professional, and he probably spent 90 minutes, but maybe 90 seconds was pedaling the bike. And I guess the rest of it was just an anatomy lesson on like, this is the way your body should move.
Can I ask, did you learn anything about strength stuff that you should be doing too? Was it looking at muscle weaknesses or imbalances, or is it sort of just like the genetic hand you're dealt and how we're working with it?
Right. So Ian does a sort of PT assessment when he does bike fit. Most bike fitters will do some sort of like strength and mobility. And so he has a stair going into his bike fitting studio. And so you step backwards onto it, and then you do like a pistol squat. And of course, my heels just totally turned inward. And he's like, oh, okay, there's your problem. So that was what I was seeing on the bike as well, that my left heel was turning inward. And so we saw that in the PT assessment. So then he rolled into, okay, here are a bunch of things that you can do from a PT perspective. And he's not a PT, but he's just been around this space forever. So then I can go back to say something like Neil, right, our PT friend, and say, hey, I have, I'm not firing on these muscles. And so I'm just super excited. And again, just shout out to Ian at FitWorks. We highly recommend him.
Yeah, I think we've learned that a bit. Bike fit can really change your life and your speed on the bike. I think this is something that rings true for Kevin, which is a story we'll come back to about Kevin's bike fit at his first Ironman.
Yeah. That's one of them. Yeah. No, it's funny though. It's the bike trainer. There's a really good one in Saratoga area, Caleb, who all my athletes go to. But there's an old athletic trainer from Siena his name is Nick, and I go to him 2 years ago when I first got my Canyon road bike. And the first thing he did, he said, lay down. He goes, your hips are all messed up. So he popped my hip and he was like, all right, now we can do the fit, because everything was messed. Like I was always favoring my left side, which I still have that problem, but for him to pop that, like it just got a much better feel for him throughout the test fit himself.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's great.
Super good insight. All right, next one, Jim.
Second one here is, I'm labeling this, you can do more than you're capable of, especially if you've done it before and especially when doing it with a friend. That's nice. So my little story for this week was, I decided to get back to swimming. I'm not quite sure why, but it just seemed like a good idea to go back to swim. So I swam on Monday, Wednesday, swam like 2K. I didn't want to put any pressure on myself. Just get in the water. I always tell my athletes, go to the pool, get in the water. That's the win. So I just got to the pool, did a little warm up, just a tiny little set. But then on Friday, I showed up and our friend Audrey was there. And of course, she's very ambitious. And she said, oh, I want to do 3,000 yards. I'm like, no, I can't do 3,000 yards. There's no way I can do that. But anyway, we pushed off the wall. We did a 1K warm up. And then we just proceeded with a 20 by 50 alternating easy fast to another 1K. And then we rolled into our favorite set, which is 4 by 200 with paddles and buoys. Yep. And next thing you know, we were at 3,000. So just the point was that, I've done this workout like just hundreds of times. And I had this mental picture in my head of how it was going to go. And that just made it so much easier. And again, just having a friend there and having context and historical context for it was like, okay, I can do this. I swam 3,000 yards, which sounds kind of, I don't know. I'll take the win, I guess.
How long did you stand on the pool deck before jumping in?
I jumped in right away, actually. Really? Yes. Because I had a friend there, right? Yeah. Yes.
That's awesome. Well, shout out to Audrey for getting you in the pool.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
That's awesome. All right. Well, I think with those insights in mind, we're ready to move into our main content for the day. All right, I wanted to do a little intro for Kevin. So Kevin is really special to us. He's one of the Endurance Drive coaches. If we didn't mention that already, our platform has 4 coaches and Kevin was the third one to join us. And Kevin was actually first one of our athletes. And he found us, I think we got an email from Kevin looking for a coach at some point.
Google ad, yep. I just typed in
the Google ads work.
Ironman Lake Placid coach, I think.
Okay, right.
Those SEOs, man. They're
right.
Yeah. But anyway, so we got an email. Kevin was looking for a coach.
Yeah, September 2020.
September 2020. And this was a really special time because Kevin was actually in my first batch of paying clients. So I'd had about 1.5 years experience coaching Dartmouth triathletes who were doing longer course races. So I knew how to work the training peaks. And of course, I'd been coached for a while, so I knew what our library looked like. But I was new and Kevin was newish. So I was like, all right, this sounds like a good fit. Let's try it out. And the thing that struck me about you, Kevin, at first was you were Mr. Green Box. Like, I don't know if you missed a single workout for the first 5 or 6 months, maybe the entire training plan working together.
Yeah.
And so I was like, wow, he's super dedicated. And again, Kevin was like pretty much a beginner in the triathlon space, but wanted to do Ironman Lake Placid. And to cut to the chase, he qualified for his first Ironman.
Yeah, I think we touched on it at that camp. I was like, I think Katie could have given me the hardest program or I had no idea. It was just like, I had no idea what I was doing. It was just like, if the box was on there, I was doing it, you know?
Yes.
And I definitely took it the less traditional route. I went, right to Ironman Lake Placid and kind of went down from there, I figured I'd start with that and then we'll go from there basically.
Yeah, well, I'll say it's really, really awesome as a coach to watch your athletes do cool stuff like that. And I got to be at your race and having you come across that finish line and knowing that, you had a good shot at the Kona ticket was a really, really big deal. So thank you for finding us.
Oh my God. I'm glad it worked out. It's because you get all I got, the usual people that pop up and I was like, these guys look awesome. It just was on your guys' website and you had the Sarah True review. I was like, all right, this is legit. So I'm glad it worked. I saw your Kona picture. I was like, all right, let's do it. I'll email them and see what happens.
Repeat Placid to Kona journey. We love it. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think then maybe what we'll do is I want to back up though. Before we even met you, we want to hear a little bit about just like where you're from, what your athletic background looked like before you became a really badass athlete.
Sure. Yeah. So right now I live in Saratoga County. I'm actually originally from Westchester County, same as you, Katie. I'm from Yorktown Heights. I went to Lakeland High School. I grew up playing competitive sports my whole life. I kind of, got thrown into everything. I was doing soccer, t-ball, basketball, everything as a kid, kind of the usual stuff. And then as I grew up, I kind of got more into lacrosse and football. So lacrosse in Section 1 in Westchester is pretty big. So I ended up playing at Siena College. I got a Division I scholarship to play lacrosse at Siena. It's a family school. Both my brothers played lacrosse there. My mother went there. My grandfather went there. So it's funny, I played my freshman year. We get back. I had, a decent fall, nothing special. I'm a freshman, just trying to get comfortable. And my first week at doubles, we get done with doubles, everything. People are getting back to classes and I'm picking up balls and stuff. And I get a shot to the head, basically. And I had some concussions growing up and stuff, playing football, just little stuff. But this was my 6th concussion. And this one was way worse than any of them. So I was out for a while. That summer, I kind of just thought about stuff with a family friend who had went through something similar, athletic training staff, my family. And when I got back the next year, my sophomore year, as a group between the trainers, my family, and the head athletic trainer, we decided that I actually wasn't going to continue to play lacrosse. So I took a medical disqualification from playing lacrosse. I stayed on sophomore year as an athlete. And then junior year, they figured I could be, put to a better use. So they took me on as an undergrad assistant coach my junior and senior year. So it was definitely, it kind of rocked my world. Like that sophomore year, it was like, one of the hardest decisions I had to make. I look back on it now and say everything happened for a reason. Like maybe I wouldn't have found this passion that I have if that didn't happen. So you like to think everything happens for a reason, but it was definitely a hard pill to swallow at the same time.
Yeah, I'm sure that was an incredibly dark time. And it's hard, like when you're really in that, to think of like these bigger picture lessons and journeys and meant to happen for a reason. I'm sure it just sucked.
Yeah.
In the moment,
Yeah. The family friend who it happened to, he had 6 or 7 and he called it eventually. He was like, what struck me the most, he's like, you don't want to be at the playground with your son and forget his name, in a decade. So it's just like, I was 19 years old. I wasn't thinking about that. I was like, no, I just came here to play lacrosse, get good grades and all that good stuff. So it was definitely kind of a whirlwind of a decision when it did happen.
Yeah. And how hard was that? I mean, so freshman year, you're obviously into it. You're in the thick of it. You're on a team. And then you come back and you're there helping the team and eventually become a coach. But how hard was that first year coming back and watching your peers play?
Yeah, it was really, like, I had some definitely dark time. A lot of tears. Like, I had obviously, like, my 3 classmates and my brother was there. Brian was there at the time. Obviously I had really good support system. But, I mean, there were some days I would just get home from practice and just be like, I don't want to do this. Like, I got to figure out something. So we'll touch on it a little bit, but that's, kind of what sparked my time into getting into the strength training as well, which kind of sparked everything, I guess, going from there.
Yeah. So take us on that journey. So, you're no longer playing lacrosse, then you get more into strength training. I think that's also where you start to get into endurance sports, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So stopped playing lacrosse, I would do some sprints and stuff. And I was like 150 pounds soaking wet. When I first got there, I was like, all right, I got to, do something. So I got really close with the head strength coach, Ian, who I owe a lot of my support to. Like, he was awesome. He took me under his wing. He would let me lift in off hours. If there was like a small team in there, he'd be like, just come in, get something in with me. So he was great. He took me under his wing. I got super into strength training. I was doing the whole, lifting 5-6 days a week, trying to put on size. I would go run a mile and like do some sprints on the turf sometimes, just to kind of keep that going. But I got really into lifting for sure. And that was for, most of sophomore year, junior year, and then obviously senior year as well.
And then where does endurance start to fit in?
Yeah, so that comes into senior year. And like I said, summer after junior, I would run, 3 miles just around town and stuff. We would try and just sweat something out on Sundays and go for a run with a few of the teammates. But I really didn't start running until COVID. 2020, our senior year got canceled. I'm in Placid. I have like a bunch of 20-pound dumbbells and bands. I was like, all right, I'll do this, but I'm going to start running. And I've told her this a few times, but I mainly did it to honestly start impressing Hannah a little bit. She was like this soccer star, like running all the time. I was like, how is she running 10 miles? Like, what is this? I was like, I got to start running. And that's kind of, I won't give her that, but I will. So I would do like 3 miles, 5 miles, and basically just all of COVID, I just started running. So I went on my first run. I remember it was right after my birthday, like mid-March during COVID. And living in Placid at this time, that's where we're quarantined. So go on my first run, 3 miles, I'm just going out running as fast as I can. I have no idea what any of these zone training is. I'm running like 7:30 miles, dogging it, breathing really hard. 5 weeks later, it's like 53 degrees out. I haven't seen the sun in a while. It's upstate New York. It's kind of dark. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go run as long as I can right now. So I get out the door. I looped Mirror Lake 9 times. I ended up running, I ran 26.2 miles 5 weeks after yeah. And it was just, I remember my cousin lives in town. I just knocked on her. I was like, Kayla, I just need like a banana and some water. Can you just bring something down? This is at mile like 16. Like my legs were shaking. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to go for 26. So that was my first experience basically is running,
That's incredible. Yeah.
Wow.
What was your pace? Do you remember?
It was 7:54.
Wow, that's still pretty strong.
And how sore were you the day after?
Oh my God. I was knocked. I remember just laying on the floor after. I was like, but then honestly, when I got home that day, I was like, all right, I'm going to do Ironman Lake Placid eventually,
Yeah.
But no, that day was special to me.
So as a coach, I'm not going to recommend this strategy, but it got you here.
No, I do not recommend that. I had somebody text me, hey, I'm turning 30 in a few weeks and I run 30 miles and he has a half Ironman in like 6 weeks. I'm like, no, let's do that after maybe. So no, don't do that. But it's COVID, I guess, brings out a different type of boredom. Let's say
Definitely.
that.
All right. So you're talking about Lake Placid. Tell us a little bit more about that because you kind of grew up always going to Lake Placid. And how did that race impact you and your decisions later on? Getting into the triathlon.
Yeah. So I grew up, my parents have been going to Placid. That's actually where they got engaged, actually. So we've been going there since I was born, 1998. They got a place there in 2001. So I've been going there forever, skiing there. We do a lot of downhill skiing at Whiteface. We hang out in town during the summer. So we would always hear this weekend, like, oh, it's Ironman weekend. And it was honestly just a traffic problem for us. Like we would try to leave on Sundays to go home and like all these roads are closed. It took us like 7 hours to get home once when it should have been like 3.5. I was like, what are these people doing? But yeah, no, I grew up, I had a teacher who did it actually. I was like, there's no way like you do 140 miles in one day, But it's funny, like you see these people pulling out of town. I would be on that J road going from J to Keene to get out into 73. And it's like you see these people in these super fast helmets. I'm like, what's going on here,
Yeah. Did you guys ever volunteer at the race?
I didn't. No. We would usually... because we'd be up there for a weekend. So, we would go back Sunday nights usually because everything was back to normal on Monday.
It's funny because I think we think a little bit about the Placid community. I've heard that it's very polarizing, this race, where like half the community loves it, half the community hates it. It is something that like pretty much grinds the town to a standstill for a couple days, but it's cool for you to go from either side.
Yeah, for sure. And it's like, I'm a local, so I do love it, but I also do see why, some locals don't like it. Like they're blocked out of their house for a day, and it's been the longest tenured race besides for Kona. It's been going on for 26 years. So some people think it's overstayed their welcome, but we'll see what happens, I guess, in the next few years with that.
Definitely. Well, let's talk a little bit about Ironman Lake Placid. We've reached it a little bit more, but this was your first triathlon ever?
Yeah, it was my first race ever besides for this.
We recommend. We recommend always as coaches go right to Ironman.
Yeah. No, besides for the self-ran marathon in that April, yes, this was my first race ever.
Yeah, so you did this standalone marathon and then you decided you were going to sign up?
Yeah, basically. And that summer, my sister-in-law, she had ran some marathons. She's like, I think at that pace, you're going to be in good shape no matter what you do. So that summer, I bought a Garmin. Watching some YouTube videos of like these people doing, I was like, all right, I think I can do this. So I got in with the IMF program, the Ironman Foundation, and that's how I got my registration block because it was sold out basically. Mm-hmm. So I think August is when I officially got my bid to it. Nice. So yeah.
You reached out to us pretty soon after.
Yeah, very soon after.
Yeah, so tell me what it was like. You're hopping on this plane for the first time. You're on Training Peaks. I think since we've all been doing this for so long, maybe we sometimes forget what it's like to be like a brand new athlete.
Yeah. I definitely. I think when we're in the thick of it, we do forget what it's like to be brand new. And it's like, I think when we get a brand new athlete, it brings us back a little bit. Like I remember the questions I would ask you, I'd be like, she's probably so sick of me, you know? But like, it's so overwhelming at first, especially triathlon. When we first started, I was just like, you sent me this Zwift install library. I was like, what's an ant stick? Like I was like, what is this? You know? So it's definitely, there's 1,000 questions, you know, bike fit stuff, and we can touch on it more in a little bit, but I was, you know, just a complete rookie at the time, which is normal. It's how it should be, you know?
But I think what's interesting is we've had this experience where we look at beginners, but we really do believe that like anyone can do this. There is a really steep learning curve, but you can start at any level. You don't have to have even run a marathon at this pace. Like if you put the work in, I think one of the biggest determining factors for having that A day is that work ethic. And that was the first thing that I saw in you was like, he is going to work and he's going to listen and he's super coachable. So that might even be something that you brought a little bit from like the team sports growing up, but I could tell that you had been coached, knew how to coach, even if it was in different context. And I think that's one of the best things we can ask for in an athlete.
Yeah.
And the first time I heard of you, Katie said, "There's this guy who I'm coaching. He just keeps hitting green box, and he does it like at 4:00 in the morning." I can hear Katie being like, "There's somebody like me who hits green box after green box. Who is this guy?"
Yeah. Again, I was just like, if it was on there, I was doing it, you know? And yeah, I do think a lot of it comes from team sports, like, you know, being coachable and being able to coach others too. I think, you know, I went in there saying I don't really know much. You know, I would watch some YouTube videos and stuff, but I knew that I came to you guys for a reason. And if you put it in Training Peaks, I was going to do it, you know? Yeah.
Well, it gave me a lot of confidence as a coach too, to like really take someone who I could help get on this path. And I was doing Training Peaks, you were doing the work, you know, but it was great for me. So thank you for doing that.
No.
And I think now let's transition to talking about that race.
Sure.
So it was a magical day. We were both there.
We were both there, right? Yeah.
And it was so much fun. We're running around the course. We have our bikes. We saw you out there. And I think the first thing that we saw, we'd seen this actually at Ironman like Placid Training Camp about a month before, but you were on a unique bike.
The bike?
Yeah. Tell us about your bike.
Yeah. That was, I thought that thing was like the Lamborghini of bikes when I first got it. I remember it was COVID too. So I went into Placid Planet. I was like, do you guys have any, you know, size 58 bikes? And they're like, no, like we are completely sold out, you know, that we have a 48. I was like, all right, that's not going to work. So I got this from an off-market thing, like I think near Bennington, Vermont. They like shipped it to me. I was like, yes, it's here. We're great. It's an aluminum bike, you know. But anyways, yeah, I rode on that thing. I got it on the trainer. Then gear, there's so much, you know, there's so much. I think it's something to say that you don't really have to worry about all the fancy stuff, you know, like. You get some people, you know, should I get this? I'm like, I had this aluminum bike, but I was on it all the time. Like I was just whiffing, you know, I was actually looking back and I was doing those 2 double bike days on the weekends and stuff. I was just on there all the time. So I think people get distracted on what can I get? But I think a lot of it comes down to the principles of just putting in a lot of this simple work, you know?
Yeah, Sarah True has a very similar story. She said she almost made her first Olympic team she said, Jim, it was just crappy equipment, but it was the work ethic and the training.
Exactly. Like if you're riding the bike and you're in the right zones and stuff and you're listening to coach, I think you're going to be fine. Sure, does a fast bike help when you're on the road? I definitely. But I mean, in that race, I ran in a bike shirt, remember? I had a bike shirt on.
Yeah.
I had no idea what to try. I was like, I have this bike shirt. Why not just wear it for the run? So it's like, I had no idea what I was doing, but it's kind of just, I was running, you know?
Totally. I think it's one of the most badass things in the world to roll in crappy gear and destroy people, which is exactly what you did because, you know, you'll stand in transition. I'm sure we've all had the experience where you look around and it's like, there's a $15,000 bike, but that person probably did not train. You know, people think they can buy the fitness, but I think that fitness is going to get you 95% of the way to your race, and it's getting from 95 to 100 that like all these embellished pieces of gear is. We can probably have a whole episode on like what you should actually invest in versus not. But yeah, the fitness is something that
I think that's the best way to put it. You can go, you know, 95% is the work, maybe 5% is whatever gear you have. But yeah, I remember passing like this guy had like this leopard, like fancy Queen Aru bike, whatever the brand is. I remember he like double take me up and down. I just like was flying by him in my aluminum specialized bike.
And your frontal drag was so heavy.
Oh my God.
We have to find a race picture of you from that and put it in the show notes because it was the most ridiculous. Your chest was like this sail.
Oh my God. I was just catching so much air.
It's just all the more impressive.
Yeah. I think I had like a dirt bike, not a dirt bike helmet, but close to a dirt bike helmet too for the first part of training too.
It was still awesome. And I think one of the most awesome things about that race for me was seeing your family there. So
oh my God, yeah.
Kevin is the mayor of Lake Placid. Essentially, if you walk around Lake Placid with Kevin, you have a VIP golden card that you flash at people. But tell me what that was like to have just like such a big family focus, both at that race and generally.
Yeah, especially at a race like that. Like family is kind of everything to me. I grew up in a big, American Irish family. That's how we were raised. We didn't miss sports game. Like I think I learned a lot of this from my parents too. My mom used to work in Manhattan, successful businesswoman, but she never missed a game ever. Like, 2-hour commute, hour and a half commute. If we had a 4:00 game, she was there, like never missed it. My father was coaching most of it. So that type of stuff, I think, was just instilled in me. And same for my older brothers. Like if they had a game at the high school, I was there. We always support each other that way. So yeah, family's everything to me. And I think they were so psyched up for me just as much. I mean, if you look at those videos, like Connor's giving me a high five and he slaps me on the back like so hard, pat me. I'm like, oh my God, that kind of hurt. But like they were so fired up. Like if you see the videos that Hannah was taking in that 2021 race, it was pretty cool to see.
Your family also staked out. There's this spot, if you've ever done an Ironman like Boston before, it's right across from Lisa G's, which is this really famous restaurant right near Sentinel Road. And you're coming down this big hill, also going up this big hill. And if Kevin would like come anywhere near them, the whole place would just explode. And it's really
cool. They all had t-shirts, right?
They all had t-shirts. Yeah, and I got everyone t-shirts because all my my friends from home are family too. Like I've known them since birth. So I think all 13 of them came up. Some of them came up on Saturday, got there at 4 p.m., drove up 5 hours for it. Some of them had to work on Monday, so they left after the race at 6 p.m. Like they're the best friends ever.
And they all stayed. I just remember after you finished, like the massive crowd you had around you in those pictures, and the sun was setting. It was a sort of golden hour. It's like, this is incredible. Look at this. This guy just finished his first Ironman. He's probably qualified for Kona. And look at all these people. Yeah. It's so impressive, Kevin.
Yeah, they're a great group of people. It's like, and again, credit to my parents. They were like, no, they can all stay here. Like we had people sleeping on couches in the hallway, but they wanted to be there. Like my friends were like, no, we're not missing this, so it's pretty special on their end.
Yeah, I had actually a very similar experience in my first Ironman in 2019, where the entire Dartmouth Triathlon team of class of 2018 came out and supported me. And there's something infectious about that. I think it gives you a boost that you can't actually replicate with anything else.
I totally agree.
If you can bring your friends, if you can bring your family, whoever it is, having people on course to support you, I think is a superpower.
Yeah. Really oh my God. Like when you're, especially like that's where that hill is too, right across the lease. I mean, they staked that thing out, but going down that hill and seeing them, it's just like you get this little boost of energy right before you go all the way up that hill,
You can't look like you're hurting when you see smells like that.
And it's contagious too. Like I remember that week, like my brother Connor, he got a pair of Hoka shoes. Like he started running. Brian did the marathon in November after that. I think it's pretty, for them to see it live, I think is a different type of thing, Yeah.
This is jumping ahead a little bit, but you're talking about kind of like inspiring other people. And one thing I want to point out was you were dark on social media for this whole prep. And now you're KPI training. Tell me about that transition.
Yeah. No, it was, again, COVID. I think it was like April. It was kind of like when all the chaos was happening. One morning, I just literally hit delete on Instagram, on every app I had. So I was completely nothing for about 1.5 years, 2 years. All training, had nothing. You guys at camp, you're like, I'm posting something to Strava. I was like, what is Strava? I was like, what is this? So yeah, all that was completely dark. I had, Training Peaks, and Hannah was honestly just like sending stuff to people of what I was doing. But after that happened, during Placid, like I saw people started to run, like they would be texting me all the time, like, hey, like how do I start running? All this stuff. People asking for help. For people doing the New York City Marathon, they're like, can you help me a little bit? I was like, sure. And there's a lot of people asking, and I haven't even, downloaded anything. I was like, I think I can make a difference if I maybe get out there and get social with this. So I think September of 2021 is when I downloaded Instagram again. I kind of changed it to KPI training. I was like, you know what, if I can coach some people, help them, and maybe inspire some other people, it makes Instagram worth it. I think there's a lot of negatives to social media, but I do think there are positives as well. It's a good learning platform. It can be a distracting platform, but I think if you try and use it the right way, it's beneficial. So yeah, I downloaded it in September, started KPI training, started sharing what I was doing. I've gotten a lot of good athletes from it. Like I've met so many good people from Instagram. I have, 10 people just from coaching that have just came through Instagram. It's like now some of them are my good friends. So I think there's some positives to it for sure.
That's awesome. I mean, I've got athletes actually who came to me and said, I follow KPI. And he said, can I get coached by you?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
That's so good. All right. So we could kind of go through your entire rest of your journey, but I think maybe we also wanted to fire off some specific questions.
Sure.
I think you have really good perspective on.
Yeah.
So we're going to go to that next. You were an incredible runner. And you coach people, a lot of people, specifically in running versus triathlon training. You have plenty of triathlon clients as well. But we're wondering if you could tell us a little bit about the differences you see for training for like a standalone marathon or half marathon versus triathlon.
Yeah. And I do think I'm a runner to begin with. Like, I'll never forget you at like mile 14. You're like, you're a runner. This is your time. Go do it. This year's Ironman is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So yeah, training for a standalone marathon versus an Ironman is completely different. The principles are similar, like, keep some stuff easy, keep some stuff intense, but there's a big difference kind of when you break it down. During an Ironman prep, depending on where you're at training, you're running, 3 times a week, 4 times a week if you have one off the bike. Right now I'm running, 6 to 7 days a week because I'm ratcheting up one volume and I just turn down the other 2. So it's definitely a different type of training methodology. Like for Ironman Lake Placid, we were pretty intense, but I only hit 18 miles once, I've hit 18 miles twice already, probably do a 20 and a 22 throughout this marathon prep. So it's just different.
Then a lot more marathon base work as well, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So are there workouts that you do with run training that you wouldn't do?
Yeah. One is the long run, so I wouldn't do 22 miles during an Ironman prep. I wouldn't do 18 miles 3 different times, Even on the track days, like we would do some intense VO2 work. We did a lot of those 3-minute sets and stuff. But I mean, like in a few coming weeks, I'm going to be doing, 10 by 1K repeats. I don't think we would do that during an Ironman prep,
And the next question on that is, do you have any advice for athletes who are wanting to run a fall marathon after coming off a summer Ironman training season? Because you've done that before, right?
Yes, I think it's kind of the perfect situation. You just have this huge block of fitness from an Ironman or a half Ironman. You're doing all these different types of disciplines, but a lot of people, a lot of them are June, July, August. So if you can find a good fall marathon, then I think it's a great way to do it. Take 2 weeks, 3 weeks, very chill recovery, get your body back to even, and then jump back into some running, and your body will adapt quickly because you have this huge base of fitness. So you might not be able to do some crazy intensity right away, but if you have like Lake Placid was in July and I did New York City in November. So it's kind of like perfect timing. I had a month to chill, get easy, and then 12 weeks basically to ramp it back up.
You had a great race there too.
I did. Yeah, I did. Hannah kind of carried me to the finish line, but I did 2:58 there. Yeah.
And tell us who Hannah is.
Yeah, so maybe we should rewind this so I don't get in trouble.
A few times.
Yeah. We can put this in the beginning of the episode. Hannah is my fiance right now. That's actually my A race this year, is getting married in September. Yay. She is probably the best person I know. She is half the reason I can do any of the type of this crazy, endurance stuff. She is an endurance runner. She is a crazy good runner. She did 2:48 in Boston. She did 2:58 in New York City. New York City 2021. But she is a great physical therapist. She graduated top of her class. She got a job offer right away, at a local practice here in Saratoga County. So I'm very spoiled in that regard. When I have any lingering things, like the last 2 weeks, I've been battling with some bad tendonitis on my left toe, and like she's helping me with the scraper. She's giving me some toe things to work out. Last year I had the bad ankle problem. She was great with that. She got it good in like a week and a half.
And did you guys trade notes on strength training? Because I know it's a big focus of yours.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think we balance each other that. Like she is great with mobility and flexibility, all that good stuff. She didn't focus as much strength training like throughout her study program because it's not really as necessary. So I think we balance each other really with that. I'm like, these are really good segments that you could be doing during your run pep, stuff like that. So
I know you inspired me with your Instagram strength story. So I always see Kevin lifting. I'm like, I gotta lift too. I gotta be like Kevin. So maybe you can touch on that. So what do you see the main benefits of strength training for for endurance athletes?
Yeah, I think it's huge. Again, it depends where you're at during your prep, but I think during the off season, you should definitely be lifting, 2 to 3 times a week. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. Like when I was at Siena, I was into the whole powerlifting thing. I was doing, back squats, barbell, everything, all this crazy stuff. And it's like, honestly, now I do mostly kettlebells. I'll bring out the barbell sometimes just because I have the rack in my basement, but I do a lot of kettlebells, lunges, squats, Roman deadlifts, single leg, push-ups, pull-ups, rows, basically as simple as it can get. I just try to put them all together. So yeah, I think it's super important. Like during Nice prep, it was only 5 weeks after Placid, so I was banged up, but I was doing one day of just kettlebells, mobility, stuff like that. And I think if I didn't do that, I think Nice I would have felt even worse at. So I think it's super beneficial.
We're big on the strength training for endurance.
Yeah.
So it's awesome to have you. Next topic we wanted to touch on is we alluded to the fact that you get your workouts done really early in the morning, and you also work a really busy full-time job. I don't even know if that's come up yet, and I wonder if people think that you're just KPI training, but that's only one element of what you do. So, tell us a little bit about how you make it all work with you have to be at the office pretty early, right?
Yes. Yeah. I'm usually at the office, depending on what we got on, usually 7:45, 8 o'clock. I'm lucky that I don't have a crazy commute. I'm a 20-minute drive. Then Fitness is 6 minutes from my office, so I can shower at the gym and be at my office in 6 minutes after that. So in that regard, I'm very lucky. But yes, people do think that I just train. And, I saw somebody at a wedding this year and they're like, oh, I thought you just do the KPI training thing. I'm like, nope, I don't think I would be able to buy my triathlon bike. I'm not a pro yet, but no, I work for a real estate developer. So it's a very project-based thing. So there's a lot of busy times, some long days and stuff. I'll work sometimes 50 hours a week, a little bit more sometimes, depending on what we have going on. So it is demanding, but I think successful at my job and career just because of what endurance sports teach me, like go the extra mile. Sometimes you have to do things that other people aren't willing to do. So getting up early, obviously I'm an early bird. So that helps me a lot, get all this training in. Like you said, some people are like, how do you get a bike and swim? And I just get up, I'll get on the bike, I'll eat something, I'll go swim at vent, shower, and I'm at work. So in that regard, I'm lucky. I know some people have different commute situations.
And you mentioned something about reverse planning, right? So how do you look at your week because you're so, busy with all these workouts and at the office by 7:45?
Yeah.
So how do you plan ahead?
Yeah, I think reverse planning and acting intentionally are the two biggest things that help me do this. So for instance, if I have an 8 o'clock meeting, I know I got to leave the house 7:15, whatever it is. I'm going to plan my morning out from there. I'm going to wake up at 4 o'clock, 4:15, be on the road 4:30, be done with my workout 5:50 if I have to lift. I'll plan all that out beforehand. I'll have my clothes ready. What am I going to run in? Simple things like even just laying on my socks and stuff. What am I going to wear to work? And that's most days, and especially during Ironman prep, it was more prevalent because I had to go swim and stuff. So I would get my gym bag ready. What am I going to eat between that bike and swim? I would get all that stuff, plan it out, be ready, get up, do it. I don't know. I think acting intentionally is pretty important with it as well.
Can I ask what time you go to bed?
Last year during Placid, I was very diligent about, I would be there 8:30, 8:45, 9 o'clock. Since September, I kind of took on a new position at work. So I haven't been able to be as my hours are a little bit different now. So sometimes it's 9:30, 10 o'clock. If I'm in bed by 9, I'm happy. There's definitely days where I'm like, all right, I could use 8 hours right now. And I'll, plan something to try and get that. So sometimes it's a lot, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But like if I don't get that morning session in, I feel like it kind of messes up my day a little bit later on. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. In recovery, you put a big emphasis on recovery. So you've mentioned sleep. And what other areas are you looking at for recovery during that busy schedule?
Yeah. And like I said, I go back to Hannah. She's super helpful with, some little PT stuff. Like I did some toe stretches and stuff like that. It depends what's going on. But I think the foam roll is great. The Aaron Carson 20-minute mobility sessions are great. I do a lot of static stretching. I know it's kind of a hot topic. Some people say it doesn't do anything. I've been doing it for 4 years now, and I think it's great. I use the Theragun sometimes, but I think the two biggest things, and I learned this a lot from what the Norwegians are doing, is food and sleep are the two best things that you can do. Some days you don't get the full lever on both of them. Some days my sleep is not as great. Some days my food isn't as good. If I have a busy day and I'm out and about, I'm at meetings, I'm on a showing or something, I don't get my regimented food thing, but most of the time I have it pretty planned out. Like I'll do a yogurt bowl in the morning when I get in. I'll do like a 10 a.m. bagel with a protein shake. I've lunch at 12. I do white rice and ground beef. I'll have like PBJ in the afternoon, another shake maybe. I usually have like these good routines that I can usually plan around. So in that regard, I think sleep and food are the best two things you can do for recovery.
Yeah, and I think we can add to, we said before, it's like 95% is the training and 5% is the gear. Maybe it's like 75% of the training, and then you get up to 95 with the sleep and food.
Yeah, I agree.
With the gear.
Yeah.
And sleep and food are not as expensive as a $50
They're not.
tri-bike.
No, and I think there's these crazy recovery things that people try and do, like do all this stuff. And I think if you can keep it simple, I think it'll help you in the long run for sure.
For sure. So it's 2024. tell us about what you're doing. You have an A race. You have another kind of A race. Talk us through your calendar and what you're thinking about.
All right. So A race is getting married in September. And then after that, my other endurance race is the OC Marathon in California, actually. That's 9 weeks. So May 5th is when I'm doing that. I'm doing with 2 friends and athletes, Jordan and Greg. So I'm really excited about that. I haven't ran a standalone marathon since April of 2022 in Boston. So I'm going to try and push on this one for sure. I'm running 6 days a week. I'm really just focusing on running right now. So I'm excited to turn it up a little bit and see what we can do.
It's going to be exciting.
Yeah. You're going to do some big things. So last question that we have here is we're always interested in coach's advice for athletes. So do you have any piece of advice that you would give to a new endurance athlete that's just starting their journey?
Yeah, I think like we touched on earlier, don't focus on the hundreds of things out there like that you see on social media and YouTube. Like find somebody. It doesn't have to be like if you're not ready for a coach, just write down your own principles. Like I'm going to stick to 3 easy days a week, 2 hard days a week. If you're not as versed in how to do it, do some more research or hire a coach, something like that. Other 2 pieces of advice, I think setting priorities. I think your guys' last podcast was really good on it, like what you have to be prepared to do if you want to do, whether it's a half Ironman, full Ironman. There are things that you're going to have to give up. You do have to make some sacrifices. You have to be ready for that. You have to learn to say no to some things. Like if you have a long day on Saturday, training wise, maybe just switch things around and make it work. So Saturday morning, you're fresh, you're ready for that session. And then after that, do what you have to do on the weekend.
That's really good piece of advice. And I like that you've blended kind of your expertise and experience with what we talk about as principles here.
Yeah. Gotcha. And I think and this is kind of going back to where I came from, like in 2020, I kind of took, I'd say a hard turn. I was in college, I was on a lacrosse team. There was, it was a different life for sure. And something kind of just switched when I got out. I was like, I want to get into this. So I cut down on a lot of the BS and I kind of turned a new leaf on some stuff. So got super into endurance training, and I think it benefited my life socially, career-wise, and then just naturally your health-wise too. Like it kind of took a big turn for me.
Yeah, I like the idea that we can always kind of keep reinventing ourselves in different directions, and I do think the endurance direction is generally a good one.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
Yeah. And one thing before we get into our listener questions that I wanted to share is I don't think we even got into it, but like Kevin's an incredible athlete. He's so humble, and he has gone to the Ironman World Championships twice. We didn't even really get into that. Yes. So we should probably do a whole nother deep dive on all the awesome stuff that you've done. But I think hearing your story and how you got here and the principles that have guided you along the way is actually going to be the most valuable thing we can take from you.
Sure. Yeah, I think a lot of it's who you surround yourself with. Meeting you guys was, I think, the start of it. Having a great family is second part of that. I'm super lucky that Hannah is as supportive as she is and helps me with a lot of that stuff. And I think just kind of the disciplines of training is what helps you kind of get to what you want to be. But yeah, 2023 was a good year for sure. I think, Jim, the program you put together for Katie and I for Placid is what obviously got us both to the World Championships. I mean, Katie, you can chime in whenever, but I texted you a month ago. I just said, Jim, WTF, this program was amazing. Like I was just looking back on it and I was just like, there was a lot of green boxes, but those boxes were just like great workouts. That was definitely the most prepared I've ever felt for a race was Ironman Lake Placid for sure this year, 2023.
But yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate that. Like we've talked about this before in other podcasts that we did some different things this year. And we said, okay, we've learned some things like some of the Norwegian stuff and just we tried some other things that we hadn't done in the past. And I just want to thank both of you guys for just sort of throwing in saying, okay, we're gamers. Let's go. Let's do it.
Yeah. Like I put it on my thing and I'm going to do it.
Right. But then we started hitting those key workouts and we realized, I think before we got to Placid, like, oh, this seems to be working and these guys are going to probably have a really good race.
Yeah. I remember you said, just on that Zoom in December before we even started, like we want a 100-mile bike ride to feel like another bike ride. And it was. I mean, we did 6 centuries?
Yeah.
And that's how it felt. I think, like I said, it was the most prepared I've ever been for a race. And it did show for sure. Like you went to Hawaii for the second time. Like, I mean.
Yeah. With a lot.
Again, we both hunted.
Yeah. We did. Yeah.
It's a run race at the end of the day.
To have a very similar like progression throughout the race and run it. And I think that just shows like the training, our program works.
100%.
And I think we both also started as not elite triathletes. We came in and we're just kind of learning the ropes of how it went. And to have very parallel Plasticona twice is an awesome place to be.
I agree. I think you could finish your bike, and if you've got the fancy bike, you can do all this. But at the end of the day, like Jim says, it's a run race. I think I was in 7th off the bike or something, and we just kept going. I saw you by the dumpster lane right there, and you're just like, you're in 6th. He's 5 minutes in front of you. And on the way back, I'll never forget, you were like, all right, first place finished. 3rd place is about 5 minutes behind you. Just keep going. But that was a great day.
That was
for sure.
Especially for both of us. All right, we're going to have a long episode, so we're going to do rapid fire listener questions. First one, Jim, why do we do run drills?
Katie looks at me and says, we're going to do rapid fire here. So get
more than 30 seconds on this answer.
Get going. Well, we have the runners here. So anyway, I get this question all the time because I put in run drills. I started doing run drills a lot for people last year. And I think of running like swimming. It's very much a technique sport. So we do run drills for a couple of reasons why. For strength and durability, there's a ton of free speed if you do these run drills. Again, I want to hear you guys chime in on this. But also I find, as you get late in the race and you start to physically wear down, you can always go back to thinking about running well. And it's like I talk about with swimming, like you don't have to swim fast, you just have to swim well. And the same thing with running late in the day. You just need to run well. You don't need to run fast. But I want to hear what you guys have to say.
I think I need to do a better job of implementing my run drills. I feel bad because I give them to all my athletes and I often don't make time for them, but that is going to be my intention going forward because I do find that it's a lot easier for me to just not feel so stiff and have a faster first mile if I do drills. If not, I'll usually walk for a couple minutes and then I end up my first mile slower than all the rest of the ones of the day, which, another way to warm up. But even though I'm not that good at doing them, I would say that they're a really good thing. And anecdotally for athletes, like I have a lot of people who struggle to keep their heart rate down, but if they do 5 minutes of drills, then they usually can settle into zone 2 a lot better.
Yeah. And I need to be better. Like I told you today, my race pace run this morning, I didn't feel warmed up until mile 5. So some of that's weather, but some of that's also, I should have taken, instead of 5 minutes, I should have done maybe 15 minutes of some activation and stuff.
Next question is, why do we do high cadence bike drills?
All right.
Those are in our Zwifts a lot.
Right, exactly right. So these are sort of similar to the run drills, is that the high cadence is this neuromuscular work, and it's really just connecting your brain and your feet. And also, if you have a quick cadence, you'll be able to respond better on the uphills, either alone or if you're within a group. And also a high cadence will also take the load off your muscles and put the load more on your aerobic system. So you can go back and forth. You want to have the ability to go up to, say, 90 cadence, maybe in an Ironman, take the load off your legs, then maybe go back to 75. But you really want to have all those tools in your arsenal.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay.
Good for recovery, too.
Yeah.
High cadence, great for recovery.
Yep.
All right, 2 more segments. We're going to rapid fire them. Challenge of the week. Jim, what's your challenge of the week? It actually looks just like a question we just got.
I know, exactly right. So my challenge of the week is just, like we said, focus on a good run warm-up. And something that I've been doing recently is I've been planning out my routes, and I park at the bottom of a big hill, and I walk the big hill, and then I run for a while, and then I plan it so to also walk the last 5 minutes as well.
Is that just to get the heart rate up a little bit?
Actually, sort of ramp. So you think about we're all these indoor cats. We're sitting inside at our computers with a heart rate, say 70 or 80, and then suddenly you run outside and you're up to 140. So we would need to go from 70 to 140. You need to double, right? So try to spend some time doing heart rate of 100, for example, and then find much better heart rate control from run warm up.
Awesome. All right, my challenge of the week. This one is to all you green boxers out there, including Kevin and others. But I think it's good to try either skipping or modifying at least one workout in your training peaks based on how you feel. So be okay with it if you get a yellow box or an orange box or even a red box.
Yeah.
Because often I think people are so glued to getting all those green boxes that you're not actually listening to your body. And if you go out and it's like, okay, I have a 6 mile run with, maybe we're doing those Z3 surges or something, and you get out there and your heart rate's wonky and your body feels terrible, call it at 4 miles. Don't do the 6 or skip the surges or do something different, because I think sometimes we get so glued to the data that we get divorced from how we actually feel, and exposure therapy to non-green boxes is probably a good way to get there.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's hard. And I think Strava is part of this reason. You always want to hit it, but just take a step back. What does my body feel like? And again, I had the same problem, last year. I think there was a few yellow boxes just because I was like, Jim, I need an extra hour of sleep. It happens. For sure.
Definitely. Kevin, what's your challenge?
Write down 2 micro goals for the week. I want to know when this is releasing, but for the next week after, sit down Sunday night. What are 2 things you want to accomplish? Whether it's I want to work out at this time or I want to hit this pace, and, write down 2 good micro goals for the week on whatever you're training for.
Yeah, I love that. That's the power of attention.
Yeah. 100%.
What are your micro goals for next week? Do you have any ideas?
Yeah, my goals are get this toe strength up. So I'm going to do probably instead of just one day of doing some of these toe workouts, I'm going to do like 2 to 3. And then it also comes with my ankle too. So I need to do some ankle strengthening. And then, what's my second one? Hit another great race pace run on Friday. Hit some of those 540s again.
That's so good. I'm going to think about that and write down. My macro goal is to finish my dissertation next week. So.
That's somewhat important.
All right, final segment, gear pick of the week. We love gear. Jim, what's your gear pick of the week?
Okay, so I'm famous for my LL Bean boat and tote bags, and I just basically keep all my bike gear and other gear in these open canvas bags, and so it just keeps me organized. I have 2 for biking this time of year. I have sort of spare warm clothes in one, and then I have all my helmet and all my other primary gear in another. So that's just an easy way to keep and store your gear.
I like that because then you can just have a go bag. So like if you're getting the car, it's like we're doing trail run, grab the trail run bag, or it's biking. Yeah. The budget version of that is you can just do like reusable shopping bags. Right. I have a whole lot of those.
The little bags.
Yeah, those live in my car with all my organization. Yeah. Great thing. I'm going to recommend, I will link this in the show notes, but you can get what's called a peanut massage ball roller. And it looks like 2 lacrosse theme, back to Kevin, 2 lacrosse balls stuck to each other. And it's really awesome because I tend to get a very tight upper back and neck. This happens a lot when you're running. It happens a lot when you're in aero on the bike. It happens a lot when you hold stress in your upper back like I do. And you can just kind of lay on this thing and really work on those trigger points. And I like it because sometimes I feel like foam rolling's a little hard. Like you're kind of in a side plank or whatever. Yeah. This one you're just laying on the ground and it feels really good. Nice. So recommend that peanut massage ball roller, and I will link an Amazon link in the show notes. Yeah, no, it's like the lacrosse ball. Like before I run every morning, I roll my foot out on the lacrosse ball, for 15 seconds aside at least. Awesome. Well, last one, Kevin, what's your gear pick of the week? All right, I'm going to go with shoes. I've been loving the Cloud Boom Echo 3s. So I've worn them for both Ironmans last year, but now that they're broken in, I'm doing some race pace marathon runs with them. They're fast. Are those carbon? They are. Yeah. That's awesome. They're a little pricey, but they last. Like I've had 5 over 16-mile runs with them, and they're not worn at all. So definitely worth the buck. Quick question for you on that is, you were used to be Team Hoka. Now you're Team... What was that switch about? I still have my Mach 5. I run in my Mach 5 sometimes. But yeah, I made this switch not to be a follower, but once the Norwegians started wearing them, and the woman who won Boston in 2023, she was wearing them, I was like, all right, they're up to something. So I started with just the regular Cloud Boom Echoes, and then started the Echo 3s, and I do the Cloud Surfers and stuff. I like them a lot, and they last longer than Hoka, I will say. You can't argue with the Norwegians. No, it's like... You can't say they're doing anything wrong. No, and not, I mean, sometimes you got to see what the big dogs are doing. Right. Right. Yeah. Sleep, calories, and good shoes, And move to Norway. That's there you go. Yeah. Just no lactate testing every 5 minutes. Yep. Awesome. Well, Kevin, thank you so much for being here. This was really great. And I learned some stuff about you that I didn't even know going back in the archives. So thank you for joining us. I keep a lot of things bottled sometimes. Well, you'll find that this is a space where we just let it all out. Yeah. Really yeah. And we'll definitely have you back because we do want to do an eventual deep dive episode on Ironman Lake Placid because we have so many athletes that do it. So we'll have you back for that. We'll probably have you back for a whole bunch of others. Your guy. Yeah. No, thank you for having me. I love coming out here. I mean, Vermont is absolutely beautiful. Seriously, even the drive out here, I'm like, this is amazing. So we'll have to come back when it's 65 degrees and we can go on a century ride. And bike another 112 miles. Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah, I like it. All right. Thanks so much, Kevin. And thanks everyone for listening. Please give us your ratings, give us your reviews, and tune in next Monday for Female Athlete Stories and then the following Thursday for our next episode. Cheers.